one thing I'll never forget was we were standing in the street trying to give away people individual flowers in return for them giving us their email address and signing up for our mailing list, trying to build up an email program. I offered a flower to a lady and she asked me what I was doing, and I told her, and then she said, I'm actually a journalist in a national newspaper, and she wrote about us the next day. You get your lucky breaks like that, and as an entrepreneur you have to take them. You don't know where they're going to come from.
Aron Gelbard, co-founder and CEO of Bloom & Wild, Europe's leading online flower delivery brand and the pioneer of the letterbox flower format.
Do you have an idea how many customers you've served over the years?
We have done over 30 million deliveries. I think from the beginning we realized that brand was going to be important and that we were going to need to stand out. Our goal was that people would not search flowers or flower delivery, they'd search Bloom & Wild.
Welcome to Screw It, Just Do It, the show for those who decided to screw it and just did it. I'm Alex Chisnall, host of this podcast and co-founder of the Festival of Entrepreneurs at the NEC in Birmingham this October 8th and 9th. This is the podcast that brings you face-to-face with the entrepreneurs and business rebels who threw caution to the wind and built something extraordinary. Quick heads up, registration is now open for this year's Festival of Entrepreneurs. Join us at the NEC in Birmingham on October the 8th and 9th for 2 game-changing days with 200 plus speakers and thousands of ambitious founders. Get your free limited 2-day pass at festivalofentrepreneurs.co.uk or click my personal link in the show notes. Welcome once again to the show, Aron.
Thank you very much for having me once again, Alex. It's great to be here today.
We've clearly made some progress in the last 7 or 8 years since we originally talked, which we'll no doubt get into. But I wanted to kick things off by asking you that I understand you come from a family of entrepreneurs, not just yourself and your father, but your grandfather as well. Can you tell us about your experience growing up as a kid, about the good and the bad sides of entrepreneurship, and ultimately what inspired you to become an entrepreneur yourself?
Of course. So yes, my dad has been an entrepreneur all his life, more than 60 years. 3 of my 4 grandparents ran their own businesses as well. And I guess growing up in that sort of family, I always hoped to start a business one day. I had a really fortunate start in life. My dad did really well when I was young. And then when I was a teenager, his business fortune became more challenging. And I guess that meant that growing up, I saw both ends of the spectrum of entrepreneurship, both what success looked like, but also what more difficult times looked like and the impact that could have in terms of, personal happiness, financial security, physical, mental health. And having seen both of those sides, it was formative for me in a couple of ways. Firstly, it made me want to have a safety net. And so despite knowing I wanted to start something one day, I also knew that I didn't want to start something as a teenager from my bedroom. And it made me pursue a relatively traditional path, going to university and then working in business consulting for 8 years, which I thought would help me develop some useful skills and also help me build up some savings. And the other thing is it made me very aware of the risk of things going wrong and what can happen if you fly too close to the sun. And I think that's relevant as well because when you start a business, you position yourself either deliberately or inadvertently somewhere on a sort of like appetite for risk continuum. And I think that has an impact on what sort of business is the right business for you to start to create. So at one of the end of the spectrum, some folks like to bootstrap their business, be profitable from day one, never raise external capital, even if that limits their growth and potentially the impact they can have, certainly over the short to medium term. At the other end of the spectrum, there are folks out there that want to raise as much money as possible, spend it as quickly as possible, use it to generate the traction to raise the next funding round. And if it doesn't work out, then they'll go on to the next thing and they're cool with that. And I realized quite early on that I was at neither of those ends of the spectrum. And I think that's been formative in terms of the type of business that I've gone on to build and how I've sought to try and finance it and what I've tried to do with the money that we've raised.
Interested to know, I did like a parents' evening for my youngest daughter, and she's taking business studies. I was chatting to her teacher, and clearly she didn't convey much about her parents and what they do, that we're both entrepreneurs as well. And when I started telling her about some of the business founders that I've interviewed for my podcast as well, it sparked an interest, and makes me wonder again, how much were you exposed to yourself as a child growing up? You said like your father had a successful period and then a not so successful period. How much of that were you aware of, and how much did that impact you, and in what ways would you say?
I was pretty aware, so for a couple of reasons, I guess. Firstly, from when I was quite young, my dad talked to me about what he did, and he had a couple of factories for his business, and he took me to see them as well. And I didn't really understand sort of what a factory was or what it did then, but I remember visiting these places and them being, in my eyes, big buildings as a young kid with, machines sort of whirring around and loud noises and things like that. And it was quite a sort of striking environment as a child. And it made me realize that where he used to go for his work was quite different to where we lived at home. And it just therefore started to form an impression on me of what I thought a workplace or a business might be. And obviously workplaces aren't just factories, but that was like a very striking early imprint on my mind because of the size and difference and noise that I experienced. And then as I became a teenager, I started to understand what my dad did a little bit more, what his business model was, how he was trying to make money, what some of the things that were proving challenging were. And I really appreciated him wanting to engage me on those topics. And that's something that he's continued to do over time. And, I'm not an expert in his business or his industry, but I try to listen to what he's doing and see if I can learn from it, and also think critically about it. And now that I've become a parent myself, I also think about this with my own children, especially my eldest daughter. She's really interested in Bloom and Wild and what we do. And she often tells me that she wants to get involved with the business one day when she's older. Obviously, it doesn't work quite like that, but it's nice to hear that she feels passionate about it. She often has ideas, even though she's only 8, for things that we might be able to do as well. And I get a lot of pride from her level of interest in what I do.
If you're enjoying this conversation and thinking, I need to be around more people like this, then I've got the perfect solution for you. The Festival of Entrepreneurs is where 5,000 to 10,000 ambitious entrepreneurs come together to learn from the people who've actually done it. It's on October the 8th and 9th at the NEC in Birmingham, and I'm giving my listeners free 2-day passes. Real entrepreneurs, real stories, real strategies. Exactly like what you're hearing right now, but live and in person. Go to festivalofentrepreneurs.co.uk and get your free 2-day pass before they're gone.
Yeah, no, I like that. My eldest, who's, I think I said to you offline, is off to performing arts college for the next 3 years, but she's often said, oh, well, it's a short career, potentially in what she's going into. She goes, maybe I'll come and work in one of your businesses one day. So it's nice to have that. And they've come when I've hosted live events and got involved with that, with being on the front desk and meeting and greeting people, giving out name badges, and I might make sure to introduce them to the guests that I've got. So I love that. What I'd like to ask as well, moving on to Bloom and Wild then, is what was your screw it, just do it moment when you decided to back yourself and build it? I mean, how many years had you been thinking about it before you actually took the leap and took action as well?
I'd only been thinking hard about going and starting my own business for 3 or 4 months when I actually decided to do it. So in the back of my mind, I'd known that it was something that I wanted to do in the long term, but that was always just in the back of my mind. And then in the autumn, in the run up to starting, I started to think about it more seriously. I briefly flirted with a couple of other ideas. And then I remember I was still working in parallel as a management consultant. And I went to have a meeting with my boss at the time, great guy. And I wanted to basically go and speak to some clients and that we were working with and try and get them to get an initiative off the ground that we'd been working on and I thought was going to be a good idea. And I wanted to get their feedback on it and get started with it. And I came to show my plan to my boss, and he looked up and he said to me, Aaron, the problem with you is that you're too focused on getting things done and you're not focused enough on the right answer. And I'll never forget that. And I thought about it and I said, okay. And I left his office and I thought, you're absolutely right. And this is why consulting is ultimately not the right job for me in the long term, because in consulting, you're in the business of selling people the right answer. That is your product. But in most other businesses, you need to put something out in front of real customers. And there's a real danger to trying to perfect it too much with what you think the perfect version is before getting any customer feedback, because your assumptions might be completely wrong. And so instead, you need to work much more iteratively with trying to get something out that you're proud of, but that you do quickly and that you then get real feedback from real customers about. You have a great process for gathering and harnessing and understanding that feedback. And in the early days, that's actually easier because it's sort of you speaking to the handful of customers you've got and seeing what they think and acting on it. And I'm very personally motivated by doing a great job for people and getting good feedback. And that motivated me in my jobs and it motivates me out of work as well. But I knew that if I was going to go from being a consultant to having a real product, which I hope people would love, and I'd find out if they did or I'd find out if they didn't, that would really motivate me. And I thought that my superpower might be that I really do obsess over the feedback I get. And I thought therefore I'd really want to work hard to earn people's good feedback and to respond to people's less good feedback. And actually, I remember going home that evening and deciding that I was going to try and get started on my business in the short term.
That conversation just proves something. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So here's my challenge. Upgrade your network. The Festival of Entrepreneurs is happening October the 8th and 9th, and I'm giving my listeners free 2-day passes to get in the room with 5,000 to 10,000 entrepreneurs who are actually building something. This is where the risk takers, the game changers, and the people who've decided to screw it and just do it come for inspiration, education, and connection. Don't just listen to their success stories, go meet the people living them. Grab your free pass now, because the biggest risk isn't taking a chance, it's missing the opportunity entirely. If this conversation resonated with you, don't just sit there, act on it. Make sure you follow or subscribe for more game-changing conversations, and remember, the only thing standing between you and your business breakthrough is the decision to screw it and just do it.